Welcome, everybody, to a brand new show here on Bruce Sports. Along with Ryan Thies, I'm Barry Nelson, and we're welcoming you inside the park, our show about, we're not just going to say Major League Baseball, but professional baseball, because we're going to cover topics such as minor league baseball. We may even cover some stuff from Japan. But, Ryan, exciting to make that transition from college basketball and college football to Major League Baseball. It is the start of summer, and we're excited.
Yeah, MLB, full swing, full weekend. Now,
pun intended, of course.
Yeah, now we get to talk about it here on Bruce Sports.
Now, if we sound a little under the weather, it is because we're both battling the starts of colds. I've been battling for the last 2 days. I don't know about you, but and if I look like I'm a little road weary, I am. I have driver's fatigue in the last 72 hours. I've been driving 24 of those to and from Atlanta, so it's been a struggle, but I'm up for it. And we're excited to have you here. We're going to have Jessica Kleinschmidt, our MLB insider, going to be talking to her about the first week and also talk about her reactions to a few other things. But first, let's get off and start on our stadium tour, which is our biggest headlines of the week so far. First one we want to talk about, Tim Tebow, homering twice, but striking out 5 times. What do you make of it? Tim Tebow in the Mets organization, single A. I think he's got a shot actually to move up to double A by the end of the season.
By the end of the season, yes, but I think he's a good fit there. He does have a better swing than what you'd expect him and what people say he does.
Right.
He's really improved that swing playing through fall league and minor league baseball. Spring training, I'm sure, helped a bunch too. But he's got a long way to go if he ever wants to make the MLB, which I don't see happening.
You don't see happening at all, ever? Not even on a September call-up, 5 years from now?
No, I don't think so.
Just as a ticket ploy, just as a kind of a promotional thing.
That'd have to be really low for the Mets.
Well, it may get low for the Mets. You never know. But Tim Tebow is trying, and he's shown opposite field power too. He went to left center. He's a left-handed batter. He went to left center on his first home run, and then pulled an inside pitch down to right field, and looked good doing it, but striking out too much. I think he's a little bit too aggressive at the plate right now.
And he also didn't even know he hit a home run. In
the
that
first
one. He thought. It was either off the wall or something, but he stopped at second. So I think it's kind of funny to see. People made fun of that, but still, he's got 2 home runs. And most of the minor leagues don't have 2 home runs.
It gives those big networks something to talk about and something to show. Your reactions to week 1 of the Major League Baseball season, any surprises, some of the performances, any of the games that you were really paying attention to that really got to you?
Minnesota, Colorado, Arizona. Those 3 teams, great.
Of course, your precious Diamondbacks.
Yeah, D-backs fan, what can I say? But still, they got the most wins in baseball right now, 6-1 going into today. Colorado's up there too. They went 3-1 against the Brewers. Had a great weekend as well. Minnesota, they swept the Royals. They're 5-2 now. So those kind of teams that were at the very bottom of the league last year, having some good starts here. It's going to be really hard for them to keep that where they're at. But I think it definitely was a surprise to me.
Well, it's such a long season, and we're going to be talking to Jessica Kleinschmidt in just a little bit about this. It's such a long season. It's hard to make predictions about who's going to finish where, and somebody can have a very hot start. You look at and I hate to bring up a hometown team, but the 1987 Brewers. Okay, I know you weren't alive at that time. I was 9 years old. They started off 13-0 and set the American League record for the best start in baseball. They go on to lose, I believe it was 20 of their next 21. Perfect. Or something like that. I know they finished out the next half of the month. It was just horrid, but they started off so hot, and everybody thought, oh, this is a World Series team, and then they just tanked. So it's really hard to predict what's going to happen early on, especially getting off to such a good start. I mean, you look at some of these, people or some of these teams like, you look at the Red Sox, they're 3-3. You look at the Dodgers, who everybody's predicting to come out of the National League West, and they're 3-3 or 4-3 now. The Cardinals, 2-4. I mean, over the course of a 162 game season, they're going to go on a win streak or win 12 out of their next 14 games.
Do not hit the panic button. There's still 150 games to be played here
for some teams. Last night, the Angels scoring 7 in the bottom of the 9th to walk off against the Mariners. Impressive.
That was a great win there.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Angels. Disappointing on the Mariners side. They still got a little bit more to work out here in the beginning of the season, but still down 6 going into the bottom of the 9th. Everyone counting you out, and they had 2 outs, and they're still down, I think, 4 or 5. and still got a few singles strung together, got a couple walks. And then the big hit from Cliff Pennington there to walk it off. Cliff Pennington's still in the lead. I was surprised to hear that one.
I know. I couldn't believe it either. And we'll see what happens. We're going to talk to Jessica about the Angels as well. A lot of expectations in Los Angeles. We'll be having a correspondent coming on in a couple weeks that covers the Angels out in Los Angeles. We're excited about that, too. Chris Bryant for the Cubs finally got off the schneid. He ended his offer in a big way against the Brewers, unfortunately, here in Milwaukee for those Brewer fans. But for Cubs fans, it was good to see him finally start to look like the MVP that he was last year.
I think Cubs are sitting pretty right now. They've got a decent start on the year, kind of as expected. They got their big home opener, raising the banner today, so that got a little pomp and circumstance coming in to Wrigley. But I think they're the team to beat here in MLB. Defending world champions, got some great pieces, phenomenal pieces nonetheless. Right. And so the Cubs, they're going to have a good year.
Just driving through Chicago this morning, everybody, whether you were listening to AM or FM radio, everybody was talking Cubs. Can't wait for the game. But we'll talk about the Cubs as well with Jessica coming up. And one final story on our stadium tour. It was talked about a little bit during happy hour. Otis Nixon from the Atlanta Braves, former Atlanta Brave outfielder who played on several of their division championship teams, was last seen Saturday at 10 o'clock leaving his home in Woodstock, Georgia, about 30 miles northwest of downtown Atlanta, leaving to go play golf. And he didn't make his tee time, and his wife called in and said, he never arrived, or his girlfriend, excuse me. And they reported him missing, and luckily they found him safe today. I had nothing to do with it, even though I was in Atlanta. I was not looking for him. But it's a good thing. You never know with some of these guys what's going on with them. Otis Nixon, of course, had substance abuse problems in the past when he was playing, and you just hope everything's all right. But it's a good thing. We got some good news that Otis Nixon was found. Very
good news that he was found safe here today.
Absolutely. We are going to bring in our MLB insider, Jessica Kleinschmidt. She is a sports reporter and fantasy baseball expert for several publications, and we'd like to welcome her into our debut show. Jessica, welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm not an expert. I'm an analyst. I don't want people to be like, well, you should know everything. Like, if Mike Trout goes 0 for 4, I don't want people like, well, Jessica, you said he wasn't going to go 0 for 4. Like, I can't predict the future. So it's analyst, not expert, because I like to actually admit that I don't know everything. So
well, we called Ryan a bracket expert at the beginning of our college basketball show, and we all
those
know
don't exist, Ryan. No, exactly. You're full of it. Those do not exist.
They called me that. I did not call myself that.
Oh, Jessica, you're out in Nevada covering the AAA Reno Aces, and you get a lot of up close and personal looks at some of these major leaguers coming in and going through the system and stuff like that. You pay attention very much to what's going on in Major League Baseball. What was your ultimate takeaway from the first week of the season?
My ultimate takeaway was, people have a lot of overreactions to the first week of play, but also a lot of teams are not messing around this year, and that's something that I definitely like to see. A lot of questions were answered, whether it was an injury situation or whether or not a pitcher was going to be healthy or anything like that. But I think the main takeaway was, don't sleep on any team. Of course, the Rays are having a great season. Logan Morrison had a phenomenal opening day. Nobody was expecting that. We weren't even expecting him to be reunited with the Rays, but they signed him to a one-year deal, and he's very thankful for it. And of course, the Mariners aren't really hitting as much as we kind of anticipated. The Astros, of course, are always going to be a team that I like to watch, and Dallas Keuchel is already in Cy Young Award talks. Again, people, 2 outings, you're going to talk Cy Young. Let's just chill for a little bit. But it's that my main takeaway was, every team is pretty good at this point in the game. So that's what I kind of love about the beginning of the season, is because it's fresh. You're not quite making any sort of situations bad for yourself quite yet, but you're getting your first game jitters out there. So you take the first week with a grain of salt.
Well, Jessica, the rumor around the Bruce Sports studio is that you have kind of a crush on Tim Tebow.
Oh my gosh, I do not have a crush on Tim Tebow.
You can thank our producer Baxter for that one. He gave me the inside information.
Baxter loves to say that.
Anyway, we were talking about Tim Tebow, and you were off the air, probably heard about us. He had 2 home runs, 5 strikeouts. Tim says enough. Geez, he can't hit a curveball or a slider. He'll be hitting 184 in a few weeks. Just watch. Christian says more reps plus natural athlete equals promotion to Double-A. He'll need more plate discipline and much better outfield to get there. Where do you think Tim Tebow ends up by the end of the year?
I can't 100% answer that because the minor league system is a little bit different than the major league system. If you look at any minor league team, and I'm speaking of this in a third person, the minor league loves to, I guess, they're really obsessed with promotional events and bringing non-baseball fans into the game. And I remember Tim Lincecum, who I actually have a baseball crush on, Baxter. He came to Reno recently last season, and he just sold out the place. And I think people love to see that. And, you know, if you look at a lot of the promotional events from your local minor league team, that's going to help. So when it comes to Tim Tebow, I don't know, depending on how the Mets do, how many, you know, September call-ups they do make, I could see him on a AAA team. I do not, however, see him playing Major League Baseball. If that does happen, it's the biggest publicity stunt I've ever heard in my life. And don't get me wrong, yes, you are right. He has hit 2 home runs in his last 3 games, and people are worried about the strikeouts. But look at Aaron Judge. Look at Jack Custon and back in the day. Like, you're going to hit bombs, you're also going to strike out. Chris Carter is huge with it too. So I think that's the type of athlete that he is. And I do agree, maybe some more reps, he might get better. I could see him in Double-A, but I was mentally preparing for him to be in High A at best. And that's what all the Mets beat reporters were saying during spring training. So if he does get beyond Double-A, it'll be a miracle. But I wouldn't put it above Triple-A, the Las Vegas 51s bringing him into Las Vegas. Like, how many tickets would they sell?
Yep.
So it would just be a great promotional event. And if the Mets are as good as they say they're going to be, they're going to have to bring up a bunch of guys, and they do have to fill those roster spots. And you can expect a lot of minor league baseball players to be very pissed about it.
And Tebow's not dumb. He's got to realize at some point that he is a publicity stunt, or he is a promotional guy.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, and I think from his point of view, and he is very, you know, a positive, you know, athlete and all of that. And I think he knows there's a publicity stunt, and he's very much aware how the media is treating him. However, he also knows there's so much positivity coming out of it. And I talked to Baxter and Tanner last week about it, and how, if you guys know how much these minor league players are not getting paid, Tim Tebow's actually, you know, buying these guys movie tickets and food and stuff like that, and actually, you know, bringing money back to the organization. He signed a $100,000 deal, so he's actually bringing the money back into the organization. He's very open to the media. He's always treated us with respect. So he's getting a lot of people what they want. So I don't know why there's so much negativity around it. I think there's a little too much media coverage, in my opinion, but it is what it is.
All right, let's talk baseball at the major league level now. We'll start with the National League, the Cubs. Jake Arrieta hasn't lost an April start and who knows when. Offense, though, was kind of inconsistent. They did lose 1 to the Brewers Friday night. That was a 2-1 game. Chris Bryant, he finally got out of his slump. Do you think they are the ones to beat? Are they the ones that are going to repeat this season? Yeah, I feel like no matter what team you are, once you win the World Series, you automatically have a bullseye on you. Their bullseye isn't as intense as like the Cardinals or say the Giants may have been, or even the Royals in recent years. But because the Cubbies are so like, it's so cute, the story, you know, 100 plus years, how adorable. But in this time going around, you know, they're still going to be targeted. And of course, you know, you're either going to win the World Series again, come close, or you're going to have that World Series hangover that everybody has. So they're always going to be the team to beat. The thing that I liked about them, though, is in the offseason, they didn't make that many crazy moves. You know, of course, losing Dexter Fowler, I think, might be a little bit more detrimental than they're willing to admit. And, of course, Kyle Schwarber is 100% healthy now. He barely played any last season, so that's always great to see. Addison Russell's always a guy that I like to watch play. And then a couple of small additions. But I don't think, you know, Joe Madden wanted to fix something that wasn't broken. David Ross, even losing him, he was more of a clubhouse guy, and he's very successful on Dancing with the Stars, so he's doing great for himself too. So it's situations like that. But of course, you have to think that they're always going to be the best team in baseball because they're still the World Series champions until another team is crowned in October, if not them. So they're always going to have a bullseye on them.
Looking at some of our Facebook comments, my mother checking in, so thanks, Mom.
Hi,
Yes,
Mom.
They did find it. They did find Otis Nixon, so that's good. Rowan is also checking in with us. She said she was impressed that the Brewers won one game, at least against the Cubs, in extra innings. Chuck saying that who would think the two best starts for Milwaukee would be from Peralta and Nelson. Rowan also checking in saying, I don't think the Cubs will repeat, but who knows? They kept their team pretty intact, and that's been the big thing is they didn't do anything drastic over the offseason, right. and they kept that nucleus and that core is very, very young.
They are, but look what the Mariners made 13 offseason moves, and they're doing quite terrible. So I'm not saying that you should, buy and sell and trade and do all kinds of crazy things because, like I mentioned, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, I don't want to say that they're young because I feel like they're very much more mature beyond their years. Right. I was watching Addison Russell, being brought up through the minors. Every single solid player that I've talked to said he's the real deal. And I'm not just saying that because I'm extremely jealous, but the guy is just a freak athlete. And of course, when you're in the shadow of the Chris Bryant's and the Anthony Rizzos, you're going to somewhat be forgotten about. So I'm really glad he had a successful end of 2015 and 2016 season to kind of make himself well known. And then, same with Schwarber. He's a very quiet clubhouse guy doing what he has to do. You mentioned Arrieta. He had somewhat of a hangover as far as that Cy Young Award goes, but he's still doing well. And he has amazing pitches and just a great guy on and off the field. But they have the perfect balance of the young guys, the veterans, the guys who have played in postseason and who haven't and everything like that. So, I mean, they're just one of the teams that you love to just talk about because you don't really have anything negative to say about them.
A couple of other teams that people like to talk about. On the East Coast, it's the Washington Nationals. Now, we saw Jeremy Guthrie get shelled. He gave up 10 earned runs. His ERA was 135, and now he gets designated. He gets designated for assignment on his birthday. Trey Turner, their starting shortstop, he goes down with an injury, gets placed on the 10-day DL today. Is this just an anomaly, or is there reason for concern for Washington? Because they are not performing like a lot of people expected them to. We know it's early in the year. They're 3-3, but is this something that's, like I said, an anomaly, or is it something that they should be overly concerned about?
I'm not that concerned. I think there was just extra pressure on Trey Turner, of course, coming up in the minors. He was a guy who had a transfer from the infield to the outfield, back to the infield. So that was a lot for him to deal with in and of itself. And the guy's just a phenomenal athlete. But when the word about you gets out, it's like, oh, crap, now I have to play to that ability. And so he's actually going to be playing a full season, knock on wood, let's hope so. And then you have people like Jason Worth, who's obviously a veteran guy, not really having a great season to start off, but then you have Bryce Harper right next to him. And then even their minor league system's really great. I really was upset when Guthrie was brought up and then having Michael Taylor go back down because I think Michael Taylor can do great as well. So they have, like I mentioned, everything you need. You add Steven Strasburg to it too. He changed something around during the offseason, going from, I believe, the wind up to the stretch or the stretch to the wind up, one or the other, going back to his college ways, which a lot of pitchers are trying to do this time around because like you mentioned, if you're comfortable in college and that's what got you there, why not continue with that? So that's what they're looking at as well. I'm not concerned about it, but like you mentioned, they're 500 right now. It's still very much the beginning. The National League is always the tougher division in my opinion. So that, people can take that with a grain of salt, but I'm not concerned. These things happen. The 10-day DL can be like a 2-day DL, or it could be a 10 rotation DL. You don't really know. I'm not concerned. And like I mentioned, Bryce Harper really wants it because he's a free agent soon. And I think he wants to make sure that he rubs it in the Nationals' face. Like, hey, you didn't want to sign that $500 million contract for me. Why not? I just won you a World Series. So he's going to go out and play really hard, and so is the rest of the team. Then, of course, they have a solid offense, and if their pitching can stay strong, there was some of those off-season trades that I really didn't like, but they have what they have, and they have a strong lineup. I'm not too worried about them.
Yeah, let's move out west now towards the NL West. Dodgers, of course, the favorite once again. They got good pitching rotation here. Clayton Kershaw, and if Brandon McCarthy can stay off the DL, he can turn out a good season. But then Yasiel Puig, he's off to a really hot start, trying to get back to his ways that we saw about 2 years ago. Do you think Yasiel Puig is kind of the piece that the Dodgers can hang on to make a World Series finally and get through the playoffs? Or are there any other teams in the NL West that you could see kind of bouncing the Dodgers out of there?
Well, the cool thing with the NL West is I actually talked to Tony La Russa recently, and he was here for a banquet, and I asked him about the Arizona Diamondbacks and the NL West. And the Diamondbacks alone have a lot less pressure on them this season because you do have the Dodgers, you do have the Giants, and there's always the Rockies too. The Rockies obviously have like the benefit of playing at Coors, so their numbers are going to be slightly better with that situation there. So of course the Dodgers are a number one team for me, but they're not there's always the Giants and of course the Rockies. Yasiel Puig had a really humbling year in 2016. He got demoted and had to play in AAA and finally got his attitude adjusted a little bit. And there was a point where the Dodgers were like, we don't want to deal with this anymore. But nobody kind of wanted to take him on because you're going to get Yasiel Puig's talent, but you're also going to get his attitude. And that's what a lot of people get scared of, right? I mean, you look at somebody standing up for their own rights and a lot of teams don't want to deal with that. So when somebody's outspoken, teams don't want to deal with that. And I think he finally realized, like, okay, I have a great situation going on with the Dodgers. And of course, Turner got re-signed. Utley's back. Clayton Kershaw, that guy's kind of good, right? So you're like bringing all these guys back and a team that has all this extra pressure on him, going back into the postseason. There's, he kind of sucked it up and realized, okay, I have to deal with this. And of course, Logan Forsythe had a phenomenal 2016 campaign, and he's coming back with that team as well. So you have all these great players, and I think he kind of, took himself aside and realized, all right, I need to suck it up and deal with everything. He's one of the puzzle pieces. He's not the puzzle piece. I don't think any player is the puzzle piece. If that were the case, the Angels would win the World Series every single year. So it's just kind of, it is what it is. But I mean, Yasiel Puig's great, but if he can calm his attitude down and realize he's not the best thing since sliced bread, I think that the team can take the whole thing.
One last thing about the NL West, and then we'll move on to the American League, talking with Jessica Kleinschmidt. Excellent information here. A lot of people have put pressure on Zach Greinke from Arizona. He signed that big deal a couple of years ago. He's 33 years old. A lot of people thought he might have been done after last year, but now he comes out. He starts off the year. He's got 10 strikeouts, a 2.31 ERA. Has a great opening game against San Francisco. I shouldn't say great, but he had a great game against Cleveland. And it looks like he may be back to form. What do you think? How much pressure is on him, and how much do you think he feels that to try and carry this Diamondbacks team?
I feel with the Diamondbacks, there's always going to be a little bit extra pressure on Shelby Miller, and that has a lot to do with that trade that took place. But of course, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Zach Greinke because of the amount of money that was spent on him. He, of course, had a AAA demotion last season, and I didn't have a chance to meet it. See it. He was on the road at the time. Really bummed me out. I was like, man, I really wanted to see how weird you were in real life. So that was kind of darn missed out on that.
He was here in Milwaukee. He was definitely strange.
Yeah, so I mean, I like weird. I'm weird myself. I'm a chick who talks about sports for a living. How weird is that? So it's just when it came to him, he had the pressure. I think the whole entire Diamondbacks rotation did too. Archie Bradley was fighting for a starting spot, and then Braden Shipley, he's down to here with us in AAA Reno. He was also fighting for a spot. So the entire rotation really had a lot of pressure on it, but the entire team really didn't. So that's kind of a weird bubble to be in, right? Like you did mention, I mean, his velocity's always been there. I think he just, who really knows? I mean, he stayed in the same division, so that couldn't have been an issue. But he's starting out strong, which is always great to see. And I know the Diamondbacks fans are extremely happy with the squad they have right now. And of course, he has a great, defense behind him and a great offense behind him. So that definitely helps. With AJ Pollock, if he could stay healthy, Owens is always one of my favorite shortstops to watch. And the outfield's always great. And so is, of course, Paul Goldschmidt. And then, Wellington Castillo is no longer on the team. That kind of sucks. I probably should have brought that up. But, beyond that, they're pretty great. I think he's got a lot of pressure on him, but the team really doesn't. So that kind of puts him at a weird mentality, like I mentioned. But I think he's doing great. And if he can keep up with it, I really think that team may not, win the entire NL West, but I think they're going to make it difficult for other teams to dominate.
Definitely a wild card opportunity for Arizona if they get all their pieces moving. Moving on to the AL, Jessica, a lot of expectations in LA, not only on the Dodgers, but also the Angels. You mentioned it, trying to piece things together year after year. Do they have what it takes this year, especially in their pitching, to sustain a long season? I mean, you have Ricky Nolasco as your ace. Who else needs to step up for that team in order for them to make that jump into the playoffs and eventually onto a World Series?
Unfortunately, they're not a top 3 team for me in the AL West. And I think that I know Mariners started off rough, but I still think they're a top 3 team for me. And then you have the Astros and the Rangers, who are always giving teams, a difficult time. But beyond Mike Trout, and then of course Albert Pujols, there's Cole Calhoun, who is very much a sleeper for me year after year. The word is kind of out for him, about him now, because the guy is just a freak athlete. And if you have to be on the same team as Mike Trout, you do have to step up to the plate, no pun intended. But of course, with Ricky Nolasco, but their pitching hasn't been strong for a while. Jared Weaver has no velocity on his fastball. Right. We know that. And then when it comes to the bullpen, that's great. Even if you have a solid bullpen, if you can't get past your starters, what's the point of having a strong bullpen? You can't have your bullpen guys playing in the second inning. You're going to kill them, So it's just kind of one of those scenarios. I think they're I don't want to say a rebuilding scenario, because I hate that term, because that's the nice way of saying that your team sucks. But I think that they definitely have a lot more work to do, and I can sense Mike Trout getting a little bit antsy over there. There's only so much he can do. Like I mentioned, one guy cannot carry the team. Albert Pujols is going to be dealing with his foot injury. That's a redundant scenario, of course. And I love Cole Calhoun, and the rest of the team's always great. But at the same time, I don't see them fitting anywhere as a top 3 team in the American League West.
Checking our comments on Facebook, Christian, in talking about Tim Tebow, he said he signed a special rider in his contract to allow the Mets to sell his jersey at home games, something that isn't allowed for any other minor league player. Of course, he knows he's a publicity stunt. Rowan checking in saying, Yasiel Puig does have a lot of attitude. Also giving best wishes to Buster Posey, who took a fastball to the helmet today. Baxter saying, yes, Jessica is pretty weird, but we love her anyway. And judging by the amount of information that you're giving us, Jessica, you're going to be one of our favorites here on Inside the Park as well. Rowan saying that Greinke deal does involve a lot of cash. Moving on, Ryan, you had a couple questions for Jessica regarding the AL.
Talking about AL East now. Yankees, they're 1-4 to start. Gary Sanchez, he is out now. He's kind of that piece that they thought was going to get that a little bit further than before, but now it just kind of seems that they have just a bunch of older guys that were stars on their previous teams and trying to just piece them together, because Chase Headley is their offensive leader right now. Great career in San Diego, but now he's in New York, and I just don't think that's going to be able to get it done in that AL East against the Red Sox. What do you make of the Yankees so far this season?
I mean, going into it was who's the youngest one on the team that's going to start for opening day. And it was Aaron Judge, there was Greg Bird, even Hicks isn't super old. And then, of course, you have Clint Frazier, who's coming up in the AAA department. And, and then all of a sudden Chris Carter gets on the team. That changes the age of the median age, which is changes a lot of dynamics around. There were so many battles over the Yankees. And unfortunately, I think that's what we were concentrating on a little too much. It was like, who's going to win the starting role over Chris Carter and Greg Bird? Who's going to get it over Hicks and Judge? And then once that happened, it was kind of like, okay, well, now you have to perform. I think Judge is kind of getting his foot setting in and everything like that. He had his first home run against Baltimore over the weekend. And there's actually a picture of him standing next to Chris Davis, and it's so cute. Chris Davis looks like big next to 6'7" Aaron Judge. It's the coolest thing ever. So when it comes to that scenario, we know he has power. It's just those strikeouts are very plenty. And I think we're realizing that when it comes to a powerful hitter these days. So I think they're definitely in a process of rebuilding. I did mention Bryce Harper is coming up on a free agency. So is Manny Machado. And of course, so is, Zach Britton. A lot of these big names are going to be free agents. And you have all those young guys, you have this leftover money from Derek Jeter and A-Rod, and you're thinking about what you can do with it. And you have big names like that. I think they're going to make it a crazy offseason trade or, a signing or something like that. Maybe Bryce Harper, it may not be. We don't really know. But I think they're just waiting for the right person to be available or ask for the right amount. And I think they're the only team who really can afford Bryce Harper. That might be true. So that's kind of a scenario too. I think they're just in a weird spot, rebuilding, if you want to call it that. A lot of babies on the team, and that's understandable. And that just kind of is what it is. But for now, if you take a look at their AAA roster or even their AA roster, they have a really great farm system. And that's ultimately what could help, finish everything off. You look what Theo Epstein did with the Chicago Cubs. He saw these young guys when Anthony Rizzo was just a baby, and these other guys, same thing, scenario. So they could really do what it takes. I just don't think it's going to be this season. Not when you're in the same division as we mentioned, the Red Sox, who are definitely going to kill it this year.
Does CeCe Sabathia finish the season with the Yankees?
I'll be surprised if he finishes the season, period.
Right.
He's just not the CC Sabathia that we grew up watching, and I think people need to, deal with that. He has a lot of off-season issues too, and I know he's dealing with them the best way that he can, but that in addition to you are one of two veteran players on that pitching roster right now. So it's really difficult for me to think about the fact where you're going to go. But I think it'll be, if he gets traded, that's fine. I'll be surprised if he finishes the season at all. I know he's dealing with a lot. And if you look from the fantasy perspective, he's not really getting owned a lot. He's very cheap across the daily fantasy world. So that's kind of showing that people aren't really taking him seriously in the fantasy world either. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think he's retiring very, very more quicker than we're willing to anticipate.
Red Sox going to be competing. They were hit with the flu bug this week. Still got off to a 3-3 start. Going to be relying heavily on Chris Sale, Wright, and Porcello. David Wright actually threw his first bullpen session, David Price. Sorry, my bad. I saw Wright and Price in the same sentence. So David Price throwing his first bullpen session through 20 pitches today. Said he felt good. Still no timetable on his return. How much do they need David Price, and how quickly do you think they bring him back?
They need David Price pretty badly. Chris Sale was a huge blockbuster trade, of course. I really was bummed to lose Yohan Moncada. I really thought he could have done great things with that squad, but losing him to Chris Sale, that's okay. And another huge, prospect, of course. But then we had to concentrate on, okay, we know who the number one starter is going to be. Then we're thinking about David Price. Then, of course, the injury occurred. And I thought it was weird. I went through these roller coaster emotions. We thought it was going to be worse than it was when he went to go talk to Dr. James Andrews at the Combine. And that turned into, he'll be out 7 to 10 days. And then you're looking at it and you're like, did I read that right? Or is it 7 to 10 weeks? Because he's not looking to come back until May. So you're kind of looking at it like you don't really know how much they're going to be paying attention. But his former teammate himself was like, I knew this injury was going to happen the way that he throws. So with that mentality intact, you have to think about the fact of, is he going to be rushed into it? And more than likely not. At his age, the amount of teams he's been on, the amount of years he's put into Major League, he's not going to be rushing into it. And at that point of your career, you cannot second guess your body. If you think something's wrong, tell a trainer, over-exaggerate it. I do not care, especially in spring training. That's what you have to do. So if he's feeling okay, I think they're going to add a rotation spot or two onto that. They don't want to rush him into anything, but I really get weirded out when a guy's injured and you shove him back into your fantasy options or anything like that. Definitely give it a chance to kind of see what's going on. But he's on pace for what he should be on, so that's good news, but don't expect him to just come out guns blazing and throw a perfect game his first game back.
Now into the AL Central, the Cleveland Indians coming off the World Series loss. Do you think they can really shake that? They're coming off a fresh sweep on the road against the D-backs. They're missing Jason Kipnis right now. But when you look at the AL Central, there really isn't any other team that you can really see really competing as well with all the talent that the Indians have right now. Royals are kind of going down. The Twins, even though they look hot right now, what they did last year was not good at all.
I don't think they can sustain that either.
Yeah, and so what do you make of the Indians?
The Twins look hot right now, but they're the Twins. Yeah, they're the Twins.
Exactly. So what do you kind of make of the Indians and the AL Central as a whole?
Well, the AL Central is always one of my favorite divisions to cover because last season everybody was so high up on the Royals, but I was very much about the Indians. I am published saying that, by the way. I knew they would win the AL Central, and that was a combination of if these guys could stay healthy. And that's the same scenario this time around. Michael Brantley is literally a bug, gets bitten by the injury bug time after time. And then you mentioned Kipnis. And don't get me wrong, I love Kipnis, and he's one of the reasons why those second basemen had so much power last season. If you're looking at, everybody in the second base position, it's like, wow, Odor is hitting all these bombs. Jose Altuve has a strong slugging percentage, and Kipnis as well. So he was part of the reason why this second base position was so strong fantasy-wise and just, being a second base in and of itself. But this time around, it's not just the Cubs or the Indians who are strong. There are so many strong teams out there. It's ridiculous. And it's not just because of the fact that all these trades were made. I just think that they're finally recognizing good talent. We're actually, realizing that the relievers are very, very much, rewarded and a part of the team and everything like that. So there's a lot of strong candidates out there. It's not just the Indians or the Cubs. So, of course, I think the Indians are great, and they're in interesting, league. You did mention they're in the same league as the Royals, and I really had a lot more promise with the Royals this time around. They always have the right names, but those names aren't exactly, hitting as much as we'd like to. The White Sox, they're there, and you mentioned the Twins, and it's just like the rest of the scenario is just unfortunately going to go towards the Indians. But I did mention, once you do go outside your division, anything can happen, and there's so many strong candidates in the American League this year that, like I mentioned, the sky's the limit for anyone. But in their specific division, yeah, they're my number one pick.
Well, and coming full circle, talking about the AL West, Los Angeles, we talked about a little bit, but a lot of people predicted that the Astros would come out of that AL West. They're very, very young, but they added a piece that a lot of people were questioning in Carlos Beltran. How important is it for him not only to be around those young guys and to show them what it's all about, but for him to actually be leading in hitting early out in the year and to say, hey, I still got it? Are they going to have enough firepower with what they have, or are they going to have to make some sort of trade deadline move to get over that hump?
I'm actually glad you asked that, and I have this whole theory with the Astros. I think they're going to be my American League World Series pick, and I know chat's probably blowing up. She's drunk. I'm not drunk. I really think that they're going to be my American League team going up against the Cubs for a multitude. You heard it here first. Yeah, so Beltran you mentioned, but Reddick is considered a veteran now too. And don't get me wrong, the guy's an athlete. He just hasn't really reached his full potential, and I think he can do that on the Astros. George Springer, who's a freak athlete. You have one of the best AAA organizations I've ever seen in my life. And an extra piece is John Singleton. Now, he's in AA because, the Astros don't take him seriously. I think if he's traded and they get some more extra pieces for him, you're going to add to those prospects and maybe even get a somewhat big name for him. And you can add to that scenario. And, of course, Dallas Keuchel he has had 2 outings. Is already doing really well. Increased his K9 rating, and his walks have kind of stayed the same, but that's just because, only 12 batters he's faced or something crazy like that. So it's definitely something to keep your mind on. And, you have the whole pitching rotation, which has always been a question mark for me. If Giles can just calm down and stop doing whatever he's doing, that would be great too. Gregerson, both him and Gregerson always have this scenario with them coming out of the bullpen. So that's something to pay attention to as well. And you have the mid infielders who are phenomenal. And Alex Bregman is one of my favorite guys to cover. And he was great in AAA as well, covering him. Really fast minor league approach for him. So they have all the ingredients. You mentioned they're young. Yeah, they're scrappy, but that's what I love about them. Scrappy players and scrappy teams can make it to postseason. It's whether or not they can go beyond that. But if you have a veteran presence like Beltran, who can kind of be like, this is how postseason goes. He knows a thing or two about postseason play, right? Yeah. So he knows how to handle it. But at the same time, the Astros have made it to postseason before. It's not like it'd be a brand new scenario for them. So I think they have all the ingredients it takes, just whether or not they can make it happen. And I think every single team technically has the ingredients, but when you lay all of those guys on a piece of paper, if you take the age factor out of it and you look at all the rest of the numbers, they have everything it takes. It's just whether or not they can, actually make it happen. And as silly as it sounds, this team, I just think they can do amazing things. If not this year, in the next couple of years, they're definitely going to make the World Series.
Jessica Kleinschmidt, you have proven in one show that you have forgotten more about baseball than Ryan and I know. So we really appreciate your insight, your predictions, all the information that you have given us. Tell people where they can see some of your publications, some of your writing, and how they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, so I'm writing for FanRag, Fangraphs, and MSN Sports at the moment. And then, of course, you can follow all of my work at Kleinschmidt JD on Twitter. And then I have my business page on Facebook, Jessica Kleinschmidt. All of my stuff's there. I'm also working for FanVice. I do a lot of daily fantasy sports and then fantasy analyzing as well. If you don't know what daily fantasy sports is, just ask me. I'd be happy to help. And anything else you may need. My messages are always open. I'm very open to, the public and my readers and everything like that. So always hit me up, ask me for anything. And it's going to be probably the best baseball season I've ever been a part of. So I hope that you guys follow my work and tune in for that.
Well, we're definitely going to ask to have you on the show again because you have a wealth of information. We loved having you on the show. Thank you for being on the debut show of Inside the Park. We can't wait to have you again.
Thank you, guys, and good luck for the rest of the season.
All right. Jessica Kleinschmidt, thank you very much for joining us, and what a wealth of information she was. My goodness. Just proving that, like I said, she has forgotten more than we know. And she has seen everything at those levels and just has just a wealth of information. She's in there too, and just good stuff all the way around from Jessica Kleinschmidt. Moving on, some controversy going on this first week. A lot of you have seen it. I know we covered it here on Bruce Sports. The whole ball doctoring scandal. The whole Yadier Molina ball getting stuck. If you take a look at your Facebook screen, the ball getting stuck right on his chest protector at the bottom. He doesn't know where it is, and he's looking, and it's just hanging there. Like, oh my God, it's got Velcro on it.
Yeah.
But we know, and Buster Olney actually made wrote a piece on this on ESPN.com a couple days ago from Milwaukee, ironically, and he talks about should the foreign substance rule be rewritten. Everybody knows that it happens. Everybody knows that foreign substances are used, whether you put pine tar on your chest protector to get a better grip on the ball so you can throw it down to second a little bit better, whether there is some clear sunscreen on a pitcher's arm. They shave their arm, they put some foreign substances on it, some pine tar, maybe some sunscreen to get a better grip on the ball, whatever it is. He said, actually, if you take a look before a new ball is thrown out, watch the pitcher kind of rub his arm a little bit, and you'll see that he does this, and he's doing that to rub that sunscreen in a little bit to get a better grip on the ball. Now, everybody knows foreign substances are used. The old rule said if you have a foreign substance and you're using it, you're automatically ejected and you're subject to penalties up to whatever the commissioner deems necessary. We saw a couple of years ago, who was it? Peralta from the Yankees?
Michael Pineda.
He got a 10-game suspension for having pine tar on his arm. Will Smith here in Milwaukee a couple of years ago got an 8-game suspension for having sunscreen on his forearm. And it was a shiny substance that people are looking at and saying, what is that? Now, a lot of managers and a lot of players look past it because they don't want to, they know that people do it, they know their team does it, so they don't want to call attention to it. But what do you think about this whole ball doctoring and foreign substance rule as a whole?
I mean, I know it happens. I know if you go out and buy a Major League Baseball, those things are very slick.
Yeah.
And I know they rub them with mud before they put them out into the game, but they're still pretty slick. So I'm fine with pitchers using what they deem necessary. I think there should be an approved list of substances. Have pine tar on the list, maybe sunscreen, Vaseline is up there, but not in excess.
Okay.
It should be checked. It should be regulated. It shouldn't just be the pitchers do, because they're going to do it anyways. The rule is set right now the way it is, and like you said, every pitcher does it. So why, if you can't beat them, join them. Let them do it. So I think it should definitely be regulated. It should be checked a lot more, but it should be allowed.
Buster says, the players and managers who navigate through these questions and the reporters who ask them must ignore the reality that baseball's foreign substance rule is outdated, obsolete, and flouted daily. Each side is then left to play roles through absurd cross-examinations that take everybody to a weird place. It's strange because back in the day you had Phil Niekro, who used to do all this stuff on the mound, and he tapped his brim, and he'd have Vaseline on the brim of his cap, and he'd put Vaseline to get a little bit extra drop on his curveball. Now, what you're saying, and from what I'm gathering from what you're saying, is you're saying that's okay.
Yeah, as long as it's not in excess.
What do you deem as excess?
Where it gets the ball to be moving way too much. There's way too much on his hat. Where it's too heavy. There's too much pine tar. It's just way too obvious. I think.
How do you regulate that though?
By watching it more, seeing where they reach. Have the base umpire out there look where it's at. Because, like Buster said, they're doing it anyways.
Well, to be able to enforce it, being the history teacher that I am, I take a look back at Prohibition. The reason why Prohibition didn't work is because they couldn't enforce it. Now, how are you going to have a list of substances that are okay and be able to enforce that, to excess, where they can't use it to excess? I mean, are you going to have to check after every pitch? Are you going to have to check after every inning? How are you going to be able to know, especially if a ball gets hit out of play or if a ball gets thrown back to a ball boy, what was on that ball? How are they going to regulate that? That's my question.
Just watch the pitcher, see what he does. They watch him anyways. They don't say anything because they don't want to draw too much attention. They don't want to draw the suspension and have it be a bad look for the pitchers. But, I mean, there's been stuff all over Twitter, people having pine tar on their hands. There's pictures and saying, oh, what is this? And then nothing ever happens because no one says anything. So I think we should just back the sides of the pitchers. Don't let them have like nail files or anything where they can actually scuff up
sandpaper.
The ball. That's when you start getting the ball to move in all crazy directions. But if it's for a little bit more grip, then I understand it.
And Buster only goes on to say that the accusation illustrated is the player appears to be cheating. Well, not really. Not within the current context, because the current rule doesn't allow for the widespread and accepted use of certain substances. Then situations like the one Yadier Molina found himself going to arise. Now, Yadier Molina, we know, because the ball stuck, he uses pine tar on his chest protector. Now, whether that's to help him when he blocks the plate so the ball doesn't travel as far off of his chest protector, that's probably
stick to it.
That's probably one of the main reasons why. Now, do you have a problem with catchers using it? Now, we talked about pitchers. Do you have a problem with catchers and other players using foreign substances to help them and maybe just get a grip on the ball?
No, I mean, the hitters can use it. They use foreign substances all the time on their bats. They can use rosin, pine tar, mixture of both. The catchers, if they can put it on their equipment, why can't the catchers do the same thing?
Okay, this is such a slippery slope and such a Pandora's box that
it's hard to really say like, oh yeah, you can go ahead and cheat because that's how the rule is right now. But it's not. Is it cheating if everyone's cheating, or is it just how it is?
I'm trying to think of an analysis that I could make. Well, if everybody's jumping off the bridge, is it really jumping off the? No, that's a bad analogy. But no, I guess I know what you're saying. If everybody's doing it, is it really cheating? In the rule book, yeah. Technically,
as far as the rule, yeah, it's cheating.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look. If a pitcher is asked about the shiny stuff on his forearm and he replies, yes, he covers his arm with sunscreen to improve his grip, it'd be an admission of guilt. And that's against Major League Baseball rules. And, I don't think it's – I do think they need to change the rule. I think they need to rewrite this. I mean, a lot of these rules that baseball has are very antiquated and very old-fashioned because baseball is an old-fashioned game. Now, we have a lot of new technology. We have a lot of new substances, a lot of new things that can help players. And I think that the rules need to be changed based on those things. I don't think you can take this rule of you can't have any foreign objects or foreign substances to help improve your grip at all. I mean, what happens when you're playing in, well, let's just say Chicago in 35-degree weather when it's raining? What are you supposed to do then? Are you just supposed to let the ball slip out of your hand? I mean, you got to have at least a little something. You can blow in your hand, but you got to have a little bit more than just going like that.
Now, on Facebook, Baxter asks, if everyone is out shooting people, does that make it okay?
Wow.
No.
That's a good analogy.
I think that is not a fair comparison because putting a little bit pine tar on your palm to use it to have a little bit more grip on a baseball is not the equivalent of shooting people. I see it more a little bit as speeding. Now, a lot of people speed.
I didn't speed at all coming from Atlanta.
I don't believe
especially
that.
in Indiana where it's, there's nobody there.
See, I don't believe that. But it's kind of less of a punishment to view it as speed. Like you hear someone say, oh, I got a speeding ticket. You don't think, oh, they're a horrible person. They're a cheater. They're cheat.
No,
you don't.
No, I don't.
So you don't think of it that way. And that's kind of how I see this doctoring of the baseballs as far as pitchers do it. A lot of people do it. It's a little bit bad, but in the rule book, it's completely bad.
Right.
You can get a lot of penalties depending on what the commissioner has, but it's not something that is really detrimental to the game. It's not going to ruin baseball.
Fair enough. Looking at some of our Facebook comments, not our Facebook comments. Royals or Bust says Jackson, and he also says that Beltran is huge in the clubhouse, with such a young squad in Houston. Young firepower will help them win the AL West. Rotation is solid as well. Rowan says definitely a list of approved substances. It needs to be regulated somehow. I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. I just want to know
like
how they're going
to. A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but you still haven't convinced me how they're going to regulate that. And like I said, the reason why prohibition didn't work is because they couldn't regulate it. They didn't have enough rules or enough enforcement in place, and they couldn't figure it out. And I just don't know if baseball has enough to figure it out. You know, they have to come up with the rule, and they're always talking about
if you put the substance on your forearm or part of the hat, as long as you decide somewhere where it's going to be in the same spot every time, and then if it's found in another spot, that's when they get in trouble.
Are they going to have an official off on the side to just watching the pitcher, seeing how many times he actually rubs his arm and stuff like that?
They can check into him. They can watch, see what he does, see if there's anything suspicious going on. They can check in with him before the game, before they come in, see where it is, if it's not too much excess, what type of substance it is. But I think that could be a step in the right direction, at least.
With everything going towards, the pace of play and stuff like that, is this going to affect? Do you think this would affect it at all?
It's
checking in on pitchers.
30 seconds to a minute.
Well,
and then if there is a problem,
Rob Manfred, if you need an enforcer, we got one right here. Ryan Thies volunteers.
If they pay me to stand,
no, you have to do it on a volunteer basis. I think even then you'd do it. I think you'd still probably do it. That's a big thing. I want to move on from this to a couple of lighter things. In Pittsburgh, they have a fan experience, and this is just so cool. If you've ever seen Super Mario Run, or if you've ever seen Super Mario period, in between innings, the Pittsburgh Steelers have Super Bucko Run.
Pittsburgh Pirates.
Did I say Steelers? Yes. Oh, my goodness. Where's my mind today? It's still working on that driver fatigue anyway. But you can see right here, the Pittsburgh Pirates actually have a game where they can play the Bucko Run in between innings. And I watched this, and it is – the fans get into this. And it's just kind of a cool thing. It's mixing modern technology with the fan experience. The guy here makes it in, not record time, but he makes it in
within the time.
Yeah, within the time limit. How fun would this be?
It's awesome. It's great to see, especially fans getting into it. You kind of see a lot of planned promotions between innings now. You get your stereotypical muscle cam, smile cam, kiss cam now. And then teams trying to add a little pizzazz to those different cams. They add some actors in there, try to spice it up, but it's just not getting to me as much. So I think more interactive stuff is good to see, and fans getting behind a single fan on the field trying to do something. And what I like too is when that fan can win everything for the whole stadium.
Yeah,
small little hand, whether it's like a free gas station hot dog or something.
Or a free slice of pizza.
It's free stuff, yeah. They still will get behind it, and it gets them interested. And one thing I was looking for and I didn't really see was a big advertisement deal for that.
No, I didn't see it either.
Yeah, because the commercialization of between the innings has kind of been its downfall a little bit too, because you're at the mercy of what the sponsor wants. Who's going to give the money? I know the Brewers with Miller Lite as a sponsor, they have you stack it. You get 5 cans of Miller Lite, and you use a baseball mitt to stack a pyramid. And it's just, it's not exciting at all.
But is that your favorite
hard.
from what you like?
That's just the one that sticks out in my head.
Okay. What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
Sausage race.
Sausage race.
You have to go with the classic.
Yeah. And the hot dog is what, 6-0 right now?
I think 5-1. He lost.
He lost yesterday.
He
finally.
lost yesterday.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. He was on a 5-game winning streak, and I know people in Milwaukee here were calling shenanigans on that one.
No, people say it's staged. It's not. Those people in those suits have such sense of pride within their circle of 5 on who wins the race that they don't fix it. Each individual wants to win the race. I know you see the president's race. You see Teddy always loses.
Right.
That's fixed. There's different times. I know the D-backs have their little race, too, that gets fixed on who wins it at certain times. But the sausage race, that is 100% real. Take my word for it.
I'm gonna try and work this out where we can get our Brew Sports host as the sausage race in the sausage race. I don't necessarily say I'm going to be in it, but if we could get you and Tanner and Baxter, I'd probably do it. If we can get Aaron in there too, our director, that'd be pretty awesome. We'll see if we can work on that. One other thing that we wanted to mention before we went off the air tonight, 1974, the debut of a special figure in Major League Baseball, and Ryan, I know he holds a special place in your heart.
I am all in on the San Diego Chicken.
The San Diego Chicken makes his debut in San Diego, 1974, yesterday, and he's probably the most recognizable.
Now, was this his Padres debut? Because I know the full story before it was he got the chicken costume working at a radio station. Mm-hmm. And was that his debut, or is this his Padres debut?
This was his Padres
where
debut.
He came out in the egg, and they had the whole Space Odyssey.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. And
big San Diego Chicken fan over here.
You even have an autographed picture of him. We wanted you to bring that because I wanted you to set it right here.
I was, right before I left, I knew I was missing something. I was like, I just can't. I got my phone charger, my laptop charger, everything. And then
of course,
I get to the parking lot, I'm like, I forgot my autograph.
And you had just texted me not too long ago should I bring it? And I said, yes, absolutely. I want to set it right here.
I'll bring it one day.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll just have it as a centerpiece for our table here.
It's him doing the skit where he does the Pete Rose slide in the third base. So he's midair, diving head first, and it's nice.
Absolutely wonderful. But San Diego Chicken, probably one of the most recognizable mascots ever in the history of sports. You got to put the Philly Fanatic up there too. A few others, but
UP for the Expos, now the Canadians. But.
Yeah, and San Diego Chicken, though, probably one of the most recognizable mascots ever in the history of Major League Baseball, and for that, Major League sports.
I like Billy Marlin too. I think he's got an interesting thing going on down there.
We're going to have to get into that with a couple people and find out what the best mascot is.
We should have like a Facebook poll thing where we have a bracket of the top.
There you go.
Most well-liked mascot.
There we go.
MLB mascots.
MLB mascots. All right. Well, we got something to do for the next few weeks, so we'll definitely take a look into that. What are you looking forward to this week? We got a little bit of time here. What are some of the biggest matchups you're looking forward to this week?
Definitely tonight, seeing the Cubs. Not really a matchup. I mean, they're playing a good Dodgers team, but really just to see them raise that World Series banner. Okay. Something they haven't seen in quite some time. There's a lot of buzz going around Wrigley and Chicago as a whole, and I want to see the Emus Catuli little sign out in right field on the rooftops where it says AC and has how many years it's been since they won the division, how many years it's been since they won the pennant and the World Series. I remember first time I went to Wrigley, I saw that, and there's a bunch of numbers everywhere. Now,
there's only one.
Zeros.
Yeah, exactly.
All zeros across the board.
Just hit the reset button, and that's pretty awesome for Cubs fans. I'm not a Cubs fan at all. I'm not a fan of Cubs fans because I know a few of them, unfortunately, that are kind of obnoxious, but that's a story. That's a story for another day. The one thing I'm looking forward to a couple matchups this week. During the week, Texas versus Los Angeles Angels. I want to see if the Angels are for real. And also this coming up weekend, you got the Yankees and the Cardinals. How much are the Yankees really in a rebuild? And can the Cardinals kind of pick themselves up off the deck after a 2-4 start and make this really a two-person or a two-horse race in the NL Central like it's always been with the Cubs and the Cardinals the last few years? Or is Pittsburgh going to make a run? Maybe Cincinnati. I don't think Cincinnati and Milwaukee are going to do much, but is Pittsburgh going to be in that mix? They look pretty good against the Braves this weekend, so we'll have to take a look at that. But Ryan, our first show in the books, in the park, inside the park. It's been fun. We had Jessica Kleinschmidt on. We thank her for joining us, and she was a great guest. Next week, we are going to cover the AL and NL East with Alfredo Muente. He's going to come on the show. We're going to talk about anything and everything that is Major League Baseball inside the park next week. So, Ryan, thank you very much. It's been fun. I can't wait for the rest of the regular season. It's going to be awesome.
Good.
All right. For Ryan Thies, for our producer, engineer Baxter Colburn, I'm Barry Nelson saying so long. We will see you next week. Be sure to tune into Brew Sports all week for Happy Hour, Morning Brew, Halftime, all of our regular shows, and also all of our specialty shows like Pick Six, Double Dribble, and, of course, Inside the Park. So for these guys, I'm Barry Nelson saying so long. We will see you next week inside the park.